My name is Andy Jones, and I'm the farm manager at the Intervale Community Farm in Burlington, Vermont. We are a CSA, community-supported agriculture farm with almost 500 households. We've been around since 1990 and are one of the oldest CSA farms in the northern part of New England and the largest in the state of Vermont. We grow a wide variety of things from arugula to zucchini. We do around 20 acres of produce a year. All of that is distributed to the members on the farm. One of the advantages that we have is that we're located in the city limits of Burlington, which is the largest city in the state. Though it's only 40,000 people, it still is that in the surrounding community, still a big market for us. There's a lot of people who are interested in buying local food and eating fresh produce, so we have a real advantage in being close to people. I got interested in high tunnels because I was looking for a way to extend the tomato season in Vermont without spending an arm and a leg to get into it. The outdoor tomato season in Vermont in a reasonably good summer, typically for us, we would pick nice fruit for 5 to 6 weeks, from about the beginning of August through the middle of September. And we could sometimes have better fruit in late September, and sometimes we'd get fruit in late July and things like that. But if we were really talking about nice slicers that we didn't have to do all sorts of crazy things out in the field to nurse them along when there was ice on the ground, we were really looking at a fairly short season. And the more I talked around, and tomatoes are one of the top crops that we found year after year on our member surveys from the membership. So in as much as we wanted to provide what people wanted in their CSA share, it was a natural extension to try to figure out a way to produce tomatoes for a longer period of time. And they've really kept the quality of the fruit up throughout the whole summer as well. Primarily, I think, early season it's nice to have the heat, but really most of the disease avoidance is a major thing. So instead of having a lot of blemished fruit that we're sorting out of the field tomatoes and things like that, we have a lot of cosmetically much nicer fruit for more of the season, and overall much higher productivity off of each plant. We have 6 tomato houses at this point, 4 14 by 96 foot houses and 2 14 by 144. The 2 14 by 144s have a higher sidewall by a foot or two than the other ones, which has been really nice. I would certainly recommend to anybody, if you're going to the trouble of putting them up, having and you're going to grow tomatoes inside, a higher sidewall is really a nice thing. We've kind of worked into 2 different styles of tomato management in those 2 things. In the lower tunnels, the 14 by 96 foot versions, we've really focused on, in recent years, we've gone to staked basket weave culture because it is nice the amount of time that we don't spend in there messing with the tomatoes. So we can, put them in the spring or the midsummer, depending on when we're getting them in the ground. Go in there a few times, weave them a few times, prune them once, and then really get in there and just start picking and not really have to do a lot of weekly maintenance. The taller houses, because they have more headroom, we've been doing overhead trellising, which is what we started out doing in all the houses. Do overhead trellising, pruning to a single leader, and tomato clips. In that house, in those houses, that is a reasonable system because we have a little more headroom, so we get better air circulation. We have a little more room for the plants on the 2 outside rows to develop. What we're aiming to do in order to provide the tomatoes over the course of the whole season, and also to maintain the quality and fruit size and things like that, we generally try to put half of the hoop houses into an early crop of tomatoes. Those usually go in the ground right around the end of April, beginning of May. This last year I finally invested in getting some backup heat in there, so we don't have the capacity to heat them on a regular basis, but at least now we can keep things from freezing out on us when the temperatures are going to drop down low in the early part of May. So we do about 3 or 3.5, 4 houses. Then we aim to have those fruit to provide high quality fruit for the first 4 or so weeks of the season. Then we're hoping that by the second week of August or so, we're earnestly picking field tomatoes so that first crop overlaps with the field tomatoes a little bit. They sort of peter out. We pick the field tomatoes for a while longer, and then by early September or the last week of August, we have a second crop of hoop house tomatoes that have gone in the ground, I think about the third week of June, maybe the third week of June. Those go in and hopefully don't mature until that end of August or early September slot. Ideally, at that point, the field tomatoes are starting to sunset, the quality's declining on those, and the hoop house tomatoes pick up and carry us through mid-October. Over the years, I've been really happy with our high tunnels. I think if I was getting into it now, I'd probably make the same choice to go ahead and go for it, because it's been a fairly low upfront initial investment. It's been a low ongoing operating cost, and it's made a big difference in our tomato production, particularly now that we're diversifying into doing some of the greens in the winter. We're looking at being able to use the houses and part of the farm for 10 or 11 months of the year instead of 6 or 7, and that seems like a good investment. The economics of it for us are not so much that we're making this many more tomatoes at this cost per pound and we're selling those on the wholesale market, and it's not as cut and dried as that, but we certainly are not spending as much time doing unproductive work with tomatoes in the field, because we have a lot better return on our tomato crop in the hoop house. We have more productivity per plant, a lot fewer culls, and likewise we have a whole winter share possibility that's kind of opened up to us as a result of having the high tunnels to use through the winter. So it's been a great thing for us, and something that I would love to expand and have more space under plastic in the future.